This time, last night on this show, we reported that the Dow Jones Industrial Average had hit its highest point ever. Yesterday was the first time ever that the Dow had closed over 15,000, which is a remarkable achievement for that collection of numbers. It had never been that high ever. Even more remarkable, though, it turns out maybe it wasn't a fluke, or at least it wasn't a one-day fluke, because today the Dow went up even further, and it stayed up above 15,000, so we have not only hit the 15,000 milestone, we are staying above it. And whether or not you care about the stock market or think that is an important economic measure of either the stock market as a whole or of economic behavior as a whole, it is undeniably a new high, a landmark achievement. And on the day that the stock market hit that new high, that landmark achievement, conservatives who find themselves on the mailing list of the group Citizens United, yes, the same group from the Supreme Court case, conservatives who have signed up to receive Citizens United emails, got this email from the group in their inbox yesterday. Subject line, Obama's latest screw-up may lead to impeachment. Impeachment, click, open. Dear concerned reader, fearing the very worst, the nation's super rich are unloading their stocks at an alarming rate. The super rich are unloading their stocks because Obama has wrecked the stock market. So on the day the stock market went through the roof and crossed 15,000 for the first time ever, subscribers to the Citizens United mailing list received this damning indictment of the Obama presidency and how it has tanked the market. You see what this communist, socialist, Marxist President Obama has done to sink the market. You have to impeach him now. He's done it on purpose. Think Progress is the one who noticed the timing of this appeal sent out to this email list. But the timing irony of this one really does just put an exclamation point on what is always true about these things, which is their resistance to factual confrontation, right? So yeah, apparently there is a right-wing conspiracy theory that President Obama is tanking the stock market on purpose as a way of destroying capitalism. Against that conspiracy theory, the record high achievement of the stock market under President Obama is just no barrier to making that claim. For the birthers, no fact, no birth certificate, no birth announcement in the local paper could ever disprove for them the self-evident conspiracy of the president's birth being faked. From our conspiracy theory clearinghouse friends at WorldNet Daily, which is where Rick Santorum works now. He came in second in the Republican presidential primary, now works at WorldNet Daily. Over at WorldNet Daily, nothing could ever disprove to them their conspiracy that they uncovered to hide the fact that President Obama is not only secretly gay, but President Obama was secretly gay married, even before everybody knew there was such a thing as gay marriage, and he killed all his gay boyfriends, obviously. So sure, to you, the facts may appear otherwise about President Obama, but over at WorldNet Daily, they have proved this one to their own satisfaction, using photos and things, and photos of things. Is this stuff crazy? Yes, of course it is crazy, but it feels great, doesn't it? Ideologically, it's just comforting to kind of wrap yourself up in this stuff. And there is a market for this stuff because of it. And the market for this stuff does not stop at the fringe. And watching that fringe weave itself into the mainstream of Republican politics has been one of the most important ideological hallmarks of the Obama years. And in that spirit, I want to take a moment here to give some unsnarky and serious kudos to Laura Ingraham, who is a conservative talk radio host, but one who I think sometimes does a very good job. And last week she had on her show Oklahoma Senator James Inhofe. He was pushing one of the most recent conservative conspiracy theories that the Obama administration is buying as much ammunition as they can get their hands on, so there's none left for the rest of us. See, that's how they're really going to disarm us, by taking away all the bullets. Then the Obama government can wage unopposed violent war on the disarmed populace of the United States. Open your eyes, sheeple. But in hosting Senator Inhofe to spell all this out, Laura Ingraham, the talk show host, God bless her, actually asked the senator some useful follow-up questions to try to get him to explain exactly how this conspiracy works. Listen.
So what are they going to do if they want to violate our Second Amendment rights? Do it with ammo.
Can you explain this to me? What do they need it for?
Well, they don't. That's the point.
But people but it had been purchased before Obama. by the
Well, yeah,
government.
not these numbers now, Laura. Not these numbers. And the best evidence of that is look what happened to the supply. The supply is gone. And where did they go? The supply, some of it, of course, people knowing that we have a president who wants to take away, they're buying it up, but not to those proportions. Now, I know this for a fact because I know the people that are concerned about this, and so there's no downside if I'm wrong on this.
The last part of this, I feel like I want to preserve it in lucite and make a plaque out of it. And then I want to give it out to people as an award. He says, I know this for a fact because I know that people are concerned about this. And so, there's no downside if I'm wrong. It's perfect. But this is not just something that is hatched from the mind of Senator James Mountain Inhofe of Oklahoma. It's not just something he says on conservative talk radio to get people all excited, even if he does occasionally confuse the host. Senator Inhofe has introduced legislation based on this conspiracy theory. It's called the Ammunition Management for More Obtainability Act of 2013. Among other things, it would prohibit the federal government from purchasing or possessing at any one time more rounds of ammunition than the monthly average of the number of rounds of ammunition purchased by the covered agency during the period beginning on January 1st, 2001 and ending on December 31st, 2009. 01 to 09. In other words, the Obama administration will henceforth be disallowed from buying any more ammunition than the Bush administration did. How terrifying would it be if the first black president bought more bullets than the previous white president? We have to stop that from happening, America. Today, the other Republican senator from Oklahoma, Senator Tom Coburn, withdrew at the last minute his proposed legislation that is also based on the conspiracy theory that the Obama administration is buying up all the ammo. Senator Coburn's legislation would have created a federal registry for federally owned guns and ammunition. It's a federal registry, but only for the guns and ammo owned by the federal government. When Senator Coburn started getting asked why exactly he wants to start tracking government guns and ammo, Senator Coburn withdrew the legislation today, saying it was, quote, a show of goodwill. Every time there's a big event in the country now, even if it's a seemingly totally apolitical event, the political reaction on the right, you can see it at work, goes very quickly to the question of whether it could possibly be an Obama administration conspiracy. It just comes with the territory these days. It's been woven into the way that the right wing approaches even day-to-day news. It's how the right wing thinks about things. So, like when the Boston Marathon bombing happened, the story for the right and for some members of the Republican Party in Congress was not that the Boston Marathon was bombed. The real story there, the real story we ought to be talking about there, is the Boston Marathon bombing conspiracy and scandal. 3 days after the Boston bombing, before the suspects were caught, before the city of Boston was under that lockdown, just days after the bombing, Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano testified before a House committee, the House Committee on Homeland Security. It was a hearing that was supposed to be about the department's budget. But because of what was going on in Boston and around the country and concern about Boston, the secretary ended up answering questions about the investigation into the bombing. Or she tried to, when she could make sense of the questions, which proved to be difficult in the case of South Carolina Republican Congressman Jeff Duncan. Congressman Duncan seemed to be trying to make the case that the Obama administration was deporting someone who they should not be deporting for reasons that made no sense, at least to Janet Napolitano.
We've got this guy who was there. We know he was there. He was arrested, or wasn't arrested, was detained in the hospital, covered with blood. He was at the scene, and yet we're going to deport him. So we're going to remove him from the scene.
I am unaware of anyone who is being deported for national security concerns at all related to Boston. I don't know where
I'm not saying it's related to Boston, but he is being deported.
No, like I said, again, I don't even think he was technically a person of interest or a suspect. That was a wash.
Wouldn't you agree with me that it's negligent for us as American administration to deport someone who was reportedly at the scene of the bombing, and we're going to deport him not to be able to question him anymore? Is that not negligence?
I'm not going to answer that question. It is so full with misstatements and misapprehensions that it's just not worthy of an answer.
Obviously, she's hiding something, right? For clarity, let's turn to where the congressman got this conspiracy theory in the first place. Let's turn to Glenn Beck.
Janet Napolitano yesterday was asked about the Saudi national and his pending deportation. She refused to answer. Why was the president meeting with somebody unscheduled earlier this week? A Saudi official. Who is this Saudi man who was in the hospital, given a new international cell phone, and apologized to, according to him, in Saudi press? Who is he, I wonder? Why would anyone linked to the bombings be deported? Let me just say this to those at the highest echelons of government that know the tagging system. They know all about events, not files, events. Let me send this message very clear. We know who this Saudi national is. You have until Monday. We have information on who this man is. And listen to me carefully in your little event world. We know he is a very bad man. I know that doesn't make any sense to you right now, but on Monday, it will.
That was Friday, April 19th. Then the Monday after that passed. Does it still not make much sense? That's okay. But I can tell you, it apparently involves something about Michelle Obama and visiting a person in the hospital, and maybe he was from Saudi Arabia, and maybe he was the real bomber, and maybe it was a huge cover-up of who really was responsible for the bombing, and Michelle Obama personally was protecting that person because maybe the White House arranged the bombing of the marathon for political purposes that obviously are too obvious to help to understand. Yes, that is the theory. Glenn Beck, you have until Monday, and then it will all be exposed. Remember right before the election, the reaction on the right to the unemployment rate going under 8%? Obviously, the answer cannot be, yay, the unemployment rate is dropping. And it can't be, yeah, this might be good for the country, but we on the right see this as bad for us politically because it makes the president not look so bad. That would be a normal political reaction. In today's right wing, the reaction was that there had to have been a conspiracy by the Obama administration to rig the unemployment rate for political purposes. The same Congressman, Jeff Duncan, who asked Janet Napolitano those incomprehensible questions about the real bomber and the Boston bombing conspiracy scandal cover-up, that same congressman has also now sponsored legislation that would get rid of the unemployment rate. It would effectively eliminate the unemployment rate and any measure of economic growth or the size of the economy by prohibiting the Census Bureau from gathering the information that is used to compile economic information, including the unemployment rate. Because, hey, who needs that? And besides, that gives them less to manipulate for political purposes. Today in Congress, the attack on the diplomatic mission at Benghazi in Libya, the attack that killed 4 Americans. Today, the line from the Republicans in Congress was that that was not something that should be seen as an attack. That is something that should be seen as a conspiracy and a scandal. This investigation is perhaps the most organized, concerted effort that House Republicans have made on anything in Congress since they took control of the House. They have voted to repeal Obamacare 39 times. They just announced that there will be a 40th vote to do that next week because you know why not. But in terms of working on their own ideas, the Benghazi hearing is pretty much it. This is the most ambitious thing they have done. And the idea here is that this was not an attack on the U.S. What happened in Benghazi should be seen as a political conspiracy engineered by the Obama administration and maybe, hopefully, by Hillary Clinton, but maybe only if she's going to run for president. Yeah, the attack in Benghazi was engineered by the administration because somehow it was good for them. So if President Obama is not going to be impeached because he tanked the stock market, he will definitely be impeached because of Benghazi. Or actually, you know what? He'll resign because of Benghazi. That'll be perfect.
As the information and facts begin to come out, it will become so obvious that there was a concerted and very, very deliberate attempt to mislead this country and its people, to lie to Congress as well as to you. And I believe that before it's all over, this president will not fill out his full term.
Can't exactly explain how it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. It's magic. If you say Benghazi enough, if you teach enough people who only type with a cap locks key on Twitter to spell Benghazi, that H is really hard, then eventually President Obama will be impeached. Or he will resign. and then we will get all of our ammunition back, and we'll finally get to meet his gay husband. Joining us now is Frank Rich, New York Magazine's writer-at-large, whose latest column, Whitewash, looks at the Republican Party's attempts to change its image as an all-white party hostile to minorities while they enact restrictive new voting laws. Frank, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here, as always.
I am looking forward to meeting the secret gay husband.
I know. Do you think we've met him before? I wonder if he's working on a sitcom in Hollywood.
The Benghazi conspiracy theory is one that I cannot reverse engineer. I can't follow it to the conclusions of its accusers to figure out why it is that the Obama administration would have, before an election, faked their response to the attack in the way that they did so as to gin up better political consequences for them.
It doesn't make any sense. The accusation makes no sense politically at all. And why the Republicans keep beating it is also unclear. It was supposed to win Romney the election, right? He was going to make a great show about Benghazi at the debate. That backfired. Then Hillary Clinton is actually a Democrat who's popular now with Republicans and no longer in office. And so they keep beating her up, and she's taken responsibility for obviously the mistakes that did happen there. And so I don't know, I keep hoping they're going to backtrack to the other 9/11 and find out what Bush was doing in Texas when he got intelligence reports saying that Al-Qaeda was going to attack America in the summer of 2001.
Well, one of the big smoking guns that the Republicans have been waving on this week is a damning assertion from former Vice President Dick Cheney that because it was the anniversary of September 11th, there never should have been an attack anywhere, because they should have been able to thwart an attack anywhere in the world, because everybody in the world should have been on such high alert. He said we were always on very high alert on every 9/11 anniversary.
Yeah, except the original 9/11.
Right, anniversary is the very important modifier there.
The idea that this can be written out of history, that it was on Cheney and Bush's watch that the biggest domestic attack of our lifetime happened, and that somehow that's off the ledger. We'll just begin the accounting on September 12th, 2011. It's so preposterous, and it's amazing to me the extent to which, in sort of normal public discourse, they kind of get away with it. You saw it a little bit during the Bush library rollout. No one is quite really calling them on it enough.
Do you think that is because on this stuff, on they're hoarding ammunition, and we have to get the real Boston bomber, and Benghazi was a scandal, not just an attack on the United States, on all of this stuff, because we've got sort of a bifurcated media universe in which Republicans are watching Republican media, they're covering all that stuff as if it's seriously, nobody else takes it seriously, and therefore there's no real journalistic interaction with those stories. Do they get away with stuff that they wouldn't otherwise get away with asserting?
They do, but really only with their base. I mean, they should know by now that for all this pounding in Benghazi, including on the Hill now, it really just has not seeped past their media sphere, the sort of the Fox News sphere.
Where they see it as a fait accompli, but they can't explain it.
They can't explain it, and they're just not winning over any converts to their position. But some of it, I think, even though it's very insular, is dangerous. Go back to those two Oklahoma senators who are talking about, the government buying ammunition. This is exactly the kind of conspiracy mongering that led to Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma, for heaven's sakes, that the government had ammunition. They were going to, Beck had said this too, they were going to have concentration camps. They had black helicopters to come after you, to come after the Second Amendment. That's sort of playing fire. I mean, some of these crazy right-wing militia types are very much still out there. And these guys don't even see the irony in, two Republican senators from Oklahoma where that atrocity happened, fanning these flames.
Frank Rich, New York Magazine writer-at-large. Can you stay with us for just a moment? We have another story coming up that is exactly on what you are writing on at the moment, and I would like to get your take on it.
Delighted.
All right, we'll be right back.